Welcome to The Upshot, Ultra World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Josh Mansfield. And we got a little newsy episode today, actually. It wasn't really anticipating this, but the Disc Golf Pro Tour dropping some news, Josh, about live coverage plans for 2023. So we've actually kind of got a lot to talk about. And we're going to talk about not only what's coming up this year and the changes, but also look ahead to maybe what the future of live coverage is going to look like and how things are going to change moving forward, how they maybe should change. So let's start to break it down. Josh, there's a lot of changes coming to DGN this season compared to last year. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you pick out what you want to talk about first. What do you feel like is the biggest change of all of these things on this list?
The one that jumped right out to me is that the first rounds of Elite, Elite Plus, playoffs, and majors will be on YouTube this year, not the final rounds. So in previous years, they've streamed that final round live on YouTube. Anybody can go on and watch it. This year, it is going to be the first round that you're going to be able to see, not the last round.
This was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was too good to be true for those people still out there freeloading on the free YouTube live final rounds, but not paying for a DGN subscription. They're just not going to let you get away with that forever. We know what the demand is going to be for final rounds. It's always going to be the highest, obviously. And this is just a sensible business decision that I think was bound to happen eventually.
Mm-hmm. I think that it may have been wiser to put Chase Card up on YouTube, right? People watch it on Saturday, something crazy's happening, and maybe people are like, all right, I'll pony up and I'll pay for this final round. Whether it be the round,
mean like round 3? You said Chase Card.
Sorry, excuse me. I meant moving day. Thank you. Yes, moving day. Second to last day. Because typically it's either round 2 or round 3, depending on the length of the tournament, right? So moving day, putting that round up, kind of getting people invested in kind of the drama and the storyline, maybe convincing them, yeah, okay, I'll pony up and I'll pay at least for this month's subscription so I can finish out this tournament and then maybe watch whatever's left in the month. But either way, it's the highlight here is that the final rounds, the best content is going back behind the paywall and is only for subscribers. And to be honest, I used to watch final rounds on YouTube. I didn't watch it on the Disc Golf Network because I thought that I think YouTube's just a better interface.
Well, that is a negative. I mean, to be clear, this is a negative. This is a value loss for fans. Simple as that. Like, you're now being forced to pay if you were used to watching those rounds for free. And like you say, Josh, the Vimeo player that DGN is built on is not very good. I feel like overall the just entire experience is better on YouTube. And so that's a bummer. I mean, I know plenty of people who are DGN subscribers who watch on YouTube on the final day because it is just a better player.
Yep.
And so that is also a negative. So the thing is, I don't see this as a bad thing, even though it is worse for fans overall, because the Disc Golf Pro Tour needs to make the money to make this all possible. And having, been involved behind the scenes now for a couple of years, I know how much work, time, money, staffing hours are being put into these broadcasts. It doesn't pay for itself.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you said, when we first said this, you said it was just a matter of time. And I think that is 100% true. And here it is. So if you've been just watching it on YouTube, got to pony up this year.
But you still get to watch the first round. It's a nice gateway, when people are going to be super excited to tune in for the start of the season, LVC round 1, free on YouTube. They give you first taste free, Josh.
First taste free.
Let's talk about some other big changes. First of all, silver events are going to get full every single round live streaming coverage this year, not just the final rounds. those will still be completely paywalled. So silver, all paywall, no free first round. And so this is a big commitment from the tour. I mean, that's a significant amount of additional streaming time. And I mean, it's a lot. It's going to be a lot of live disc golf. Like if you're a live disc golf fan, the value of your subscription has now gone up pretty substantially, I think. You know, I don't know necessarily how much demand there's going to be for silver round one live coverage, but there will be times when people are pretty excited about that.
I think that this also is a good move coming and paired with the season changes that are adding a brand new slate of silver events that a lot of people are very excited about. And, you know, having courses like Beaver State Fling still on the silver events is going to be a big deal in people wanting to engage with that content. And so if you continue to feature new courses, exciting new tournaments on silver events, then providing the 3 rounds of coverage probably is seen as a lot of value. And even if at the very least, geographically speaking, right, like Zootown Open, I guarantee for those who aren't able to attend that, or those who are going to like pay to attend on Sunday, they'll probably watch the disc golf on the Disc Golf Network now on Friday and Saturday before they go watch the final round on Sunday. So there's a strong geographical appeal as well for the silver events that are going to places that are a little bit underrepresented by professional disc golf tournaments, and is going to give the opportunity then maybe some incentive for those who maybe otherwise weren't going to purchase a subscription to do so.
Additionally, the tour is going to be adding a new analysis pre, post, and halftime show called Tournament Central. That'll be on for the elite and above events. Basically, before the start of the FPO round, there's going to be kind of like a pre-tournament show. And then, you know, you'll have the standard broadcast. And then in between the FPO and MPO round, there will be a kind of FPO wrap-up and then an MPO preview. And then after the MPO round, there'll be an MPO wrap-up or like a daily wrap-up. Exactly what the timing is going to look like for those things, I think, is a little uncertain. They're saying it's going to be a minimum of additional 90 minutes, I believe is what the press release says.
It's more than that.
It's a minimum of an hour and 45 minutes of additional live coverage on top of the standard broadcast. So an hour 45 is what they're saying. I'll be interested to see how that works out. I think this is an obvious evolution. This is what you see in any other sport, you know.
I think we talked about this in our Sports Envy show as well. Yes.
So I think that makes a ton of sense. I think the challenge is going to be, how do you make that an engaging experience? You know, are you able to get interviews? Are you able to have guests? Can you make it feel a little bit like Sports Center on a tiny budget? That's going to be a challenge, I think, but I love the concept. And I've heard a lot of people asking for something like this as a way to kind of like bridge that gap between the end of the FPO round and the start of the MPO round.
I don't see anything here that answers this question, and maybe you know the answer to this question though, Charlie. Is it going to be the commentators for the round who are doing Tournament Central, or will? Okay, all right.
No, that I know for a fact.
Okay, all right, good. Because if the answer was yes,
it'd be a little too much talking, I think.
Too much, way too much. And
so it'll be a completely separate person. I think generally it's going to be done as a full remote from somewhere. Okay. There's a chance I might do this Tournament Central concept a couple times this season. So we'll see. But I'm curious to see what it looks like. That's for sure.
Me too. I think an hour and 45 minutes is a lot of time.
But if you think about it broken up, you know, you do 20, 30 minutes of pregame. Like, you know, welcome to Disc Golf Network. Let's talk about what's coming up in this FPO round. There's stuff to talk about.
There is. Some of that stuff is covered, though, early on in the coverage of a round, though.
That's my question is, how do you make
something
it
you
all
highlighted,
fit together with the, you know, maybe you just spend less time on the sort of typical pre-show stuff on the main broadcast, right? You have that happening as part of this Tournament Central concept, and then you throw it to the booth broadcasters basically as they're getting ready to tee off for, chase card or whatever.
I really hope that there's not lots of redundancy. That's my biggest hope.
Sure.
Anyway.
Sure.
Other changes. So this one, USDGC and European Open are going to both be available for Disc Golf Network subscribers. So the tournaments themselves will not be behind the paywall. Now, this is the part that I find interesting. There are 2 bonus content that are pay-per-view only. Those are the President's Cup at European Open and Monday qualifying at USDGC. Charlie? How much what's your price point on paying for Monday qualifying at USDGC?
I'm sorry, I literally have zero interest in watching that. There's no amount of money you'd have to probably pay me to watch that. I mean, maybe they're going to roll that in with other benefits as part of the pay-per-view, because if that's the only thing, I don't think they're going to sell a single ticket to that.
There's got to be. It's got to, like, maybe the post-produced.
That's what they've done historically, is have post-produced available as only as PPV. So, I'll wait and see on that. But, ultimately, this year, USDGC and European Open were available for DGN subscribers. No extra pay-per-view. That's coming back again. I think that's probably a positive thing. PDGA members will continue to get 50% off on a monthly plan. That has been, I've seen a lot of people in our Discord complaining about that being difficult to redeem after the first year. And so sounds like they're committing to that, but they need to have a better process for actually redeeming that discount. Speaking of the money side of things, the price is going up again. So a DGN subscription is now going to be $12.99 a month, up $1 from last year, and $129.99 a year, which is up $30 from last year. It was $99.99 in 2022. So a pretty substantial price hike on the annual. $1 more a month I don't think is a crazy thing. It's still a really good deal if you're a PDGA member. But we're seeing streaming costs go up across the entire industry, whether you're looking at Netflix or you name it. Prices have been going up. So if anything, DGN is still priced on the low side for a lot of for something that is like really targeted and niche like this, and the amount of content they're now going to be creating. I'm sure there will be a little bit of grumbling about that. We'll see. I feel like the substantial increase in the annual price definitely feels like a nudge away from using that as the model, and like more people will go month to month, but maybe that's a part of their goal.
Maybe. And I still think that DGN needs to do a better job of convincing people to subscribe between the months of November and January. And
it's tough.
On Tour was, I think, a good, the docuseries. But if I'm a subscriber, I just say, yeah, I'll watch it in February, right? I've only got LVC in February, so I'll start in February. And those 3 months are cheaper than, by taking out 3 months, that's cheaper than the annual, because it looks like the annual gives you 2 free months essentially.
Yep.
In exchange for the annual commitment. So I think, it's still advantageous for me to just go month to month and not do,
especially
November,
as a PDGA member.
As a PDGA member with one.
I mean, let's do the math. I'm just going to do the math right now. So $12.99 a month becomes $6.50 a month, basically.
Yep.
And even if you did the entire year,
sure,
and you paid for all 12 months, you're paying about $78 total. If you only subscribe for the season, so it's $6.50 times, let's say it's February to October is the season, right? So how many months is that? Not November, December, and January. So that's 9 months. You're paying $58.50. I kind of wonder how long this is going to stick around as a benefit. I mean, it's such an insane deal. Like, I'm surprised that they're still keeping it as a 50% discount. Just like $650 a month is really very cheap. Go ahead, Josh.
And combo that with like how much of my PDGA membership goes to the Disc Golf Network, if any, right?
Well, that is unclear. Like what the deal is on that side. That's not public.
So
they got to be getting some money from the PDGA, right?
You would think so. There's no way they're just offering that just because. And think about it this way as well. So you said, it was like 60 some odd dollars if I did all 12 months at the PDGA rate? $70?
It's 58. If all 12 months is $78.
Okay, $78. So it's $78 if I were to do the annual, even if I'm not doing month to month, let's just say annual, right? Because if I didn't have a PDGA membership, I probably would just purchase the annual.
Yeah. So that would be $130.
$130 versus
minus the
about
78. That's $52.
Okay. My PDGA membership costs $50.
Exactly.
So for a fact they're not making up the whole difference.
If you like to watch the live DGN content, you should get a PDGA membership, even if you don't use it at all. It's financially smarter to do it that way, right? Because the value of this 50% off is going up as the prices are going up, and now the annual plan is a lot more, so there's not as much of a benefit. Like it's more punitive to get that. So like now a PGA membership really makes sense.
It is. You're 100% right though that I don't have to play a single tournament, but by me getting the PDGA membership, I will save $2 just through my DGN subscription.
I mean, it's a great benefit for being a PDGA member. Like it's clear. Yeah. I think it's clearly the best benefit beyond being eligible to play in tournaments.
If you had to take a bet right now as to whether or not this is going to be re-upped next year,
I mean, I think there will be a discount, but I think it's going to go down in its value. It's going to be a 20% discount or something like that.
I would still be thrilled with 20%.
It's still a good deal at that point, but I don't know. 50% is just so much. I mean, maybe that's why it's been so hard for people to redeem it. They don't want you to redeem it.
They advertise it. It's not able to
I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's an aggressive growth plan. And speaking as somebody who is doing a similar thing in Ultimate, right? We have a pay-per-view product. It actually happens to be $12.99 a month and $129.99 a year. Stealing ideas over here, DGN. Their method so far has been very aggressive about acquiring new users. And this 50% discount makes that an easy thing, right? Like if you're even on the fence, like if you're not willing to pay $650 to watch, or in the past it's been as low as like $5, right? Then you're simply not willing to pay at all. Or like, what is the point at which you would be say, okay, like take my credit card number, you can sign me up. So this is still a very aggressive, like user acquisition. It's smart because the hardest thing is to get somebody to sign up. Getting them to stay signed up is easier. Getting them to say, I enjoy having access to all this content, that's easier. So pretty interesting situation. I mean, at the end of the day, I want to make this point. This is the business of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. This is it. It's DGN. Why do you think they've spent so much money, energy, time, and development on this side of what they do relative to other things that they could be working on instead? They could be doing way more with event coverage. They could be there, and it's not that they're not doing stuff on those other fronts, but this is their business. This is where the bulk of the revenue is coming in. This is the growth path for their, operations. This is what makes it all tick. So I think that's why you're seeing prices going up, but also benefits going up.
And it's, I think this is something that we highlight often, that the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and there's so many questions that people ask about the disc golf side, right? And at the end of the day, this is, and like every sport, right? Every professional sport is not about the sport. It's about entertainment.
That's right.
It is, right? It's why the NFL continues to make offense and scoring easier. And every sport makes scoring easier because that's what fans want to see. And it's because it's about an entertainment product. And so when you frame a lot of these things through that lens, I think it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of decisions here that make a lot of sense. And it's definitely some interesting changes for this season.
The only other thing I'll add here, PDGA members will continue to receive, as well as getting, the discount, complimentary access to the Las Vegas Challenge, PDGA Champions Cup, U.S. Women's, final 2 rounds of Pro Worlds, and the MVP Open. So even if you don't sign up, you still get a bunch of freebie benefits. I mean, as we said before, the tie-in between the Pro Tour and the PDGA has really accelerated. And now the PDGA owns a small stake of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So that continues. When we come back after the break, we are going to discuss, where does DGN go from here? What's the future of live coverage look like as we move into the rest of this decade? We'll be right back.
Hey there, my name is Jody Avirgan, and I'm the host of a new podcast from TED called Good Sport. I've learned a ton of life lessons from playing sports, from watching sports, and from covering sports in my career as a journalist. During our first season of Good Sport, we'll look at hotbeds of talent, how a new sport like F1 can break through, how to deal with aging out of playing sports at the highest level, and lots more. Check out Good Sport wherever you listen.
The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And there's a lot of top pros out there carrying a Pound bag. Check out the list of Pound ambassadors for 2023. Nate Sexton, Big Germ Jeremy Colling, Valerie Mondahano, Mason Ford, Christian Dietrich, Dustin Keegan, Zoe Andyke, Vanessa Van Dyken, Joel Freeman, Aaron Gossage, Ella Hansen, Gavin Babcock, Casey White, and Cole Redolin. An incredible group of pros who will almost certainly see some Elite Series wins out of this year, and they're all carrying a Pound bag. Get yours today at pounddiscgolf.com. Welcome back to The Upshot. So DGN making some changes this season, but what's the future of live disc golf look like? I mean, we've seen, just as a way of, let's just go back in time. You don't have to go back very far for DGN to be really so different that it's unrecognizable from the product that you get today. Literally 2019. It was not very good. It's come a long way in just a couple of years. But where are we going next? I want to start this conversation with a little bit of news from the ESPN2 broadcast that was just on of the kind of the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship sort of season recap-y thing. I've seen pretty mixed reviews on the actual quality of the presentation itself. Regardless, the ratings came back. Short story, ratings were double last year's, but about half of 2020's. And at the end of the day, this is kind of typical stuff. 123,000 viewers based on Nielsen ratings, a 0.04 rating. So it's, these are not spectacular numbers at all. But this is pretty typical of a niche sport like this airing on ESPN2 in the time slot that it aired. Why did it do twice as well as last year? It's not because there was twice as many people interested in watching it. It's because last year it was on opposite NFL football in the middle of the day on Sunday. No one's watching ESPN2 at that time.
Nope.
This time it was on in prime time in the evening, a little bit better of a time slot, but not as good as 2020 when it was on Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, right in the sweet spot of prime time. And there wasn't really other stuff or there were a lot of people channel surfing over, and there was a lot of social media buzz about the disc golf because everyone was watching TV. It's Tuesday before Thanksgiving. What are you doing? So I wouldn't read too much into these numbers, but I do think that it points to the fact that the tour is still kind of maintaining this relationship with ESPN, Josh. Do you think we see them try to go live on an ESPN property for the actual round coverage live at some point in the next 5 or 10 years? You think that's a good direction to go? And I'll give you the option. You could say that it's going to be on television.
Okay.
Let's say it's on ESPN2 live in real time, or it's on their ESPN Plus platform, which, to be fair, like technologically is a lot more reasonable as the way things stand right now in terms of the, what they have to put onto the internet is a lot more acceptable versus being on linear television where the standards are a lot higher.
Right.
I don't know that their cameras would qualify. Like, there's a lot of stuff that gets more complicated with TV. But do you want to see them go that way?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And I've kind of gone back and forth and vacillated a lot on this subject, because the first time that I really remember us going in depth about trying to get access and more programs on ESPN, there were emails that came in that said cable television is not the future of sports. It's streaming, right? We are actually ahead of the game, and that is demonstrated by a variety of sports, and that we need to get ahead. I still agree with that as a principle, that eventually ESPN Plus, for example, is going to be the model of how sports are streamed moving forward. That being said, number one, the largest consumer of sports are males between the ages, I think it's of like 38 and 65. It's actually on the upper end of the age bracket, which is outside of the disc golf demographic of who plays disc golf. So it's kind of shifted up. And those people are primarily consuming content through cable television and traditional television as their primary means of accessing sports. So what this does is it targets a different sports demographic in an attempt to kind of bring and bolster the kind of viewership that eventually become paying subscribers. Even if at the end of the day, it is an opportunity for advertising that if the Disc Golf Network was able to create content and put broadcasts on ESPN Plus that doesn't really cost a lot. I don't know the costs, but if they could do so at low or no cost because of the popularity of it, and then sell those kind of advertising slots, it is another financial source and revenue stream outside of just subscribers that the Disc Golf Network can monetize if it can become a popular enough program on ESPN Plus to show it to people like Barbasol, for example, that says, look, we have really good ratings on ESPN Plus. People stream us through their Hulu accounts and what have you. And we have hundreds of thousands of people that come and watch our product on ESPN. That's meaningful sponsorship opportunities for an entire season that are upper six figures, very realistic if they can show a committed streaming schedule on recognized platforms. And so I think it's an opportunity primarily for monetization of advertising revenue that allows the Disc Golf Network to gain access to revenue streams that don't just depend upon the subscriptions of their viewers, and is the reason why I think it's such a smart part of their comprehensive media strategy.
I got to be honest, I would like to see a live tournament round on ESPN television property, simply to see what do the ratings look like when all the disc golfers want to watch, and that's the way to watch.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I'm curious. Like, how much of a difference does that actually make? It might not be enough. You look at a really, really popular round that's live on YouTube for free. 40,000 viewers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a good number. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I'm not trying to poo-poo it, but if you go from 130,000 live on ESPN2 to 170,000 live on ESPN2, it's not really moving the needle very much. But I'm curious. I wonder about the ESPN Plus value a little bit. I mean, the thing that I worry about is you don't want to alienate your DGN subscribers.
True.
You don't want to be like, hey, you get everything except you don't get this final round or that final round because those are going to be on ESPN Plus. So you got to get that subscription too. Now, people who already have that subscription, like me, maybe Josh, do you?
I don't have ESPN Plus.
You don't have ESPN Plus?
No.
Okay. I mean, see, there you go. You got to buy another subscription in order to watch. That might be too much of a negative for existing fans and not enough of a benefit, because at the end of the day, there's so much stuff streaming on ESPN Plus. Even though they have millions of people who could watch the disc golf, how many of them are actually going to come across it and watch it?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's like a little bit of a suspect way of thinking that you're going to reach new people. Now, the advertising point you make, I think, is very fair. I think that is one of the reasons that they've continued to do the ESPN2 broadcast the way that they have. It is an opportunity for them to upsell advertising on the Tour Championship.
Yes.
That's literally why I think they do it. So going more in that direction, having more opportunities for bigger advertising slots on television, I can see that as being something that they want to try to do. Some other wish list stuff I have for DGN moving forward. I would like to see. Did you see this the other day? They had a PGA Tour broadcast. Max Homa hit his drive, and then as he was walking up the fairway, the broadcasters are in his ear, having a conversation with him as he's walking to his ball, and he's talking about why he hit the drive the way he did, the way that he liked to play a draw. You know, what he's thinking about in terms of his approach to the green for a birdie. And like, this is all happening in real time on a regular PGA Tour round. This is not some exhibition event. I think we could see something like that in disc golf. If you can come up with the technology solution, then you could, have a casual conversation during a backup or, after a player throws their tee shot to check in with them about what their approach was and why they chose it. Mm-hmm. I feel like that level of engagement is not something that you always get with the live coverage, and would make it feel a lot more dynamic for viewers.
I did not see that, and that's actually pretty remarkable to me. I would agree with you. I think that would be a really interesting. I mean, I would love the idea, hot mics, right? And the listening to hot mics and being able to check in. But yeah, definitely hearing the opportunity for them to talk about it. I think finding players who maybe are also very, have conversations with their caddies, right? And rely on their caddies, having them both wired and being able to listen in on a player and their caddy making a decision, I think would be a really interesting thing to watch. Definitely, that would be some really interesting content. It's funny because I've thought about that, and between rounds or in between holes, for example, it feels like those are interviews that could definitely happen and would be feasible during a backup. But for them to be wired in and just be able to chat while they're walking down a hole, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean that was a first for the PGA Tour. There's a lot of buzz in the golf world around that.
I'm sure. Some other things I want to see. I want to see better graphics that include shot tracking and better hole previews. Now, the hole previews with the drones are fine, but there are times where they do the drone preview and then it's unrecognizable when they're actually playing the hole. And I think part of the biggest reason why is because the drone flies the path. It just kind of flies it as what is best for the drone, right? It's not where are they going to be landing. It's really hard to kind of analyze the hole as you're going to be watching it from that drone path. And it also comes, I know we've talked to Mahmoud about this, about why they do it this way. I really don't like that the previews have to come after they throw their shots.
That's the worst.
It's so bad. And I understand logically why you're doing that, but I hate it. Because I want to know the hole before they're actually on it. And here's something else. Jomez now has the graphic where they show kind of the bird's eye view and then puts the pin where everyone's discs landed. Excellent. I think DGN needs to have that, right? That's what they need to be showing after the drives. But there are other things that could very easily, number one, a pen. I want Terry Miller to have a pen that he could just draw all over the hole. I think that would be so much fun to watch. But the other thing, let's put an image of the fairway and put highlighted colors with birdie percentages, right? 30% of all shots that land on this part of the fairway result in a birdie. This is the ideal landing zone.
Or the
this
NBA
OB
has some stuff like that.
Right. This stretch of rough means that your odds of bogey or worse are now 80%. Right. that would highlight danger, risk, shot selection. Anyway, yeah.
I love that. The thing is, so it's not even that crazy to imagine how we get to that, right? Some of this stuff is kind of like a little pie in the sky still. Live shot tracker. Like, yeah, the technology exists, but when the PGA Tour does that, they have a giant semi trailer that just does shot tracker.
Right.
And they have specialized cameras, and it probably costs like $1 million.
And imagine doing that in the woods. Yeah.
Right. We're not getting that soon, but I can dream. I also want that. That would be awesome. What I do think that if UDIS can take the next step in terms of stat tracking, and we go from just saying fairway off the fairway to the player is, center fairway, left fairway, rough, and they're this far away because we Bushnell every hole, or they have some other way of doing, distance measurements that are like for every shot. Then aggregating that data into percentages, for instance, it's like if you are off the fairway 300 feet or further away, your birdie percentage is now only 10% or something. Aggregating that data isn't actually that challenging. You don't have to necessarily have like what they have in the NBA with all the crazy sport view cameras that give you real-time odds on a 3-pointer going in based on the player's shooting percentage, the closest defender, how far away from the basket they are. I mean, it's honestly amazing. It's like almost really too much. The thing is, in golf, it's almost more interesting because I think it can help you evaluate the difficulty of a shot or like making a shot from that location. Because sometimes we'll see a shot and we'll be like, wow, that's a great shot. Wow, they got a tap in birdie from there. But it turns out that 85% of players get a birdie from there. Like that actually is a shot that looks great to us because it's a cool hyzer or something, but it's not actually that hard to execute.
Right.
Versus a shot from another part of the fairway where you might not be able to tell on television that it's hard. But it turns out that like that's only you're only going to get a birdie 5% of the time from there. We're not there yet. I think in some ways we need the statistics side to catch up a little bit to the ambition here because we haven't really had a breakthrough on stat keeping in, since UDIS kind of unveiled the whole Circle 1, Circle 2 stat tracking back now probably 6 or 7 years ago.
And to their credit, I mean, it has been refined, but I agree that no major breakthrough in that usage. It could inform so much about player decision making. And here's the other value that this adds. It doesn't depend on having a color commentator who's played that course 1 million times. Right? You could have a professional commentator here who understands disc golf, but has never played that course and can highlight some of the statistics and examples just based on the data about why those decisions are being made the way they are. It significantly expands the opportunities for commentating and the professionalization of it on that side.
The last thing I'm going to ask for, and I think I've said this before, but I mean, this really is an area that they're going to have to start to look to move more towards going forward. This is probably the number one step they can take to improve the broadcast. Got to wire more courses with fiber. You got to stick more of your cameras into actual fiber and not run it over cellular networks. Yeah. At the end of the day, the number one complaint we hear, and I think it's fair about, live coverage, is that it's just the quality of the actual picture, the image, isn't as good as Jomez. Now, the comparison isn't fair. There's a big difference between post-produced, 4K footage and a live broadcast that's running over cellular networks. But, at some point, you have to try to do more to wire courses. And maybe that only happens once a year for now at select tournaments. And they do have this some, there's at USDGC, there are a number of cameras that are wired directly into their broadcast switch. You got to try to do more of that. Most of the cameras, when you're watching a golf tournament on television, all of those cameras by the holes are all wired.
Yeah. Now
they have some wireless cameras to walk around with the players, but there's a lot of cameras that are wired and they're going to give you the absolute maximum picture quality. And it's a pain, but I think that's the future of like trying to improve the look and feel of the broadcast, is to just improve the image quality.
A lot of things that I think are very ambitious, but there are some things absolutely that could be implemented this season that could tangibly make the broadcast better. And in the discussion with Jeff Spring and the interview with Todd Rainwater, man, name was just trying to get away from me. They talked about spending the money to invest in the technology, to invest in the equipment. And it's clear that this, like we talked about, this is their business. They're taking it seriously. Now you've got the equipment, like let's deliver the product. Give me graphics.
give Josh graphics. Okay, that's going to do it for our show. Always enjoy hearing from you. We love to talk about the media here on The Upshot. Shoot us an email, upshot@ultiworld.com. Get yourself a subscription and listen to our subscriber bonus segment this week. We're talking about FPO course design. Great article up on Ultiworld Disc Golf about that a couple weeks back, and we're going to dive into it today. So thank you so much for tuning in. We will talk to you next week. We've got some fun stuff coming up. Preseason draft, LVC preview right around the corner as we get ready for the season. So don't go anywhere. Thanks for being a subscriber. Tell a friend to subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.